Welcome back, man, to another great episode of Comedians in Bed. And as always, I have a good comedian, and I like to give her an introduction, man. When I seen her video clips on IG, I was cracking up because this woman right here is god dang hilarious. All right. And I don't know if they can see, but I have frugal on my shirt. And this woman is not frugal at all because she lives in New York City. Okay. I've never even been to New York City. I just flew by. All right. That's the closest I've ever been to New York City, man. But we got her here on the podcast here today. And I'm so excited about it. Please, everybody, give it up for the wonderful Sarah Tollemache, everybody. Yeah, and I forgot the tracks, but there we go.
Oh my God. Hi, thanks for having me.
Trying to do everything on your own, man. It's hard.
It is. I know. I do a podcast and I produce it myself while we're doing it. And there's times where I'm like, shit, didn't press record. It's so frustrating. So it's tough, it's a lot of work.
It's tough. Let's talk about your podcast right away. Let's get into that because this is a wonderful podcast. How did you guys get started with it, and how's it going? What do you guys talk about on there?
Well, I'm friends with Katie. I've known her for years. Katie Hannigan. She's the one that I co-host Lady Journey with, and we always get along and we always find the same things funny. And then we were just talking. I had done a previous podcast with Adrian Appalucci, and we just felt like we hit a wall, and I felt like we were actually competing in the men's world of podcasting in the humor department. And, I just was like, I just don't think a lot of guys in that world are going to jump over and listen to Vag. Like, I thought we were really funny, but it's just like marketing. It was hard. So Katie and I actually like, the feminine side of stuff, but I wouldn't say that it's only about like Lady Journey stuff. That we wanted to cater a podcast to women. And so we focus more on lifestyle and beauty and fashion, and hopefully that it's funny at the same time. But we've also, in the meantime, racked up quite a few guy listeners.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love the podcast. I love when women talk their shit on there because we need more of it. I'm used to women, well, mainly my mom talking shit to me, but like hearing other women talk shit is a beautiful thing, man. What's some of the feedback that you've been getting? Before we get into that, what is so you talked about how you got it started. Like, how do you come up with like the topics? Do you guys just fall off the dome? Like, give somebody some ideas if they never heard it before.
Well, usually, I guess some of the topics are stuff that we're doing in our life. Like, we just joke about like women go on journeys. Like, I think I'm always moving furniture around in my apartment. And I know that must be annoying for Joe, but I'm trying to always find the most feng shui.
Yeah.
I like the best vibe. And I reflect back on that when I was a kid, like, oh my God, I think I was always moving around my furniture. Like, I could never find the right way to decor my apartment. And I laugh about that journey of always buying stuff on Amazon. And then I forgot to do the measurements and buy a window rod for my curtains that I thought would fit like a big window. And then I get it and it's like 3 feet long. And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, and like the ongoing journey for curtains. So we always joke. Did you ever see that SNL sketch with Anna Gasteyer and Molly Shannon called Delicious Dish?
Yeah.
We're kind of like that.
Okay.
Like the subject matter is boring, but we get a real kick out of being very earnest and taking it really seriously about like overnight oats. Like, remember that 3 months when we really got into overnight oats? Like, and then you never forget about it and you move on to the next thing. And I actually think that's relatable for any sex.
Yeah,
gender,
I've done overnight oats before. It didn't last that long because I think I was putting peanut butter in it, and the peanut butter the next day in like a plastic Tupperware, it doesn't taste the same. It doesn't.
No, it always looks when you watch like blogs or TikToks and you're like, yeah, that's for me. Like, I'm gonna get into that, and then you do it and you're like, this is crap. This is absolute crap. I'm eating soggy seeds and or like, like chia pudding. You're like, I like it texturally, but like let's just be real. This is just boring crap.
Yeah, they do a good job of convincing you on TikTok, like you can do this too, and then when you do it, it's like, nah, this didn't come out the same.
No, and then your like whole life is devoted to it, and you're like, I have to make my chia pudding tonight, so I can't really go out. It's like, you're like, it's just easier to, I don't know, have cereal. Just be boring.
Now, Sarah, are you a mom? Are you a wife? Are you those things?
I'm a wife. I'm married
Okay.
to comedian Joe List. I feel like most people know him more than they know me.
Okay. How long have you
Yeah.
guys been married?
We've been married since 2017, so we'll hit, I can't do the math, 6 years. 6
Okay.
years in August.
What's y'all's guys' love story? I just got engaged. Tell me you
Oh,
guys' love story.
congrats.
Thank you.
Our
Thank
I
you.
think our love story is, I had met him as a friend. He was like one of the first comics that I met and when I moved here, but I was in a long distance relationship in Houston, and that of course fell apart within like 6 months. And then he was in a relationship, and then he moved, and then he broke up, and then we had the same friends, and then he moved into the comics apartment that was about 2 blocks away for me, and I love convenience. And I just say, oh, it was just, it's easier to date someone within a half-mile radius.
Yeah.
So, and it worked out. And so we started off as friends, and then now we are husband and wife.
How is being married to a comic? Because they say you don't want to date nobody in the game. How was that? Like, did you see any trials and tribulations when you guys first got it started? Mixing with the business with pleasure, I guess.
I've never had like big issues with that. I've dated several comics. I think it's easier to date in the pool because like where else are you really going to meet people? And I never really did the apps. That was kind of before my time a little bit. And then by the time I met Joe, that's when I feel like that became the norm. Um, that, yeah, I just feel like dating a comic. I remember Sarah Silverman had a like it was like a funny comment. It's like being gay. Like,
Yeah.
who else am I gonna date? Like, if I date outside of comic, it'd be like being gay and then dating someone that's straight. You're like, it's just easier to date in that pool.
Yeah, I do agree. My girlfriend's my fiance is not a comic, but we met at work, and a lot of people be like, "Don't mix business and pleasure." But I just like you said, I'm like, you're there for like a numerous hours a day. Like, where else you gonna meet somebody at?
Yeah, and you meet them organically and you kind of know them before, like, because like go meeting somebody on apps, like I know it's fine, and a lot of people meet really great partners that way, but like it's cold.
Yeah,
There's no vetting. And
yeah,
so I like it when somebody's been in the social circle. So if I start dating them, I get to hear some gossip beforehand, or I can feel the situation out, how they handle, adversity.
yeah. That's a beautiful thing. So, how did you get into comedy? Like, what's that story like? What was your first touching the mic story like? What's that like?
Well, I feel like when my parents moved here to the States, they were a little naive about what's on TV. Like, so, I think when I started forming memories, HBO became a thing and all they had was comedy specials. And my parents came from a country where censorship was all over the place. So they were anti censorship. And so we kind of ending was like, if you understood what it is, then you're actually ready to hear or see whatever it is that you're watching.
Mhm.
Kind of lightly disagree, but I don't have any regrets on any of that. But so we just watched. There was just a lot of stand up on HBO at the time, and that's all we watched. And I feel like humor was valued the highest form or value in our family. And I just was like, I loved the art form. I liked it on the fact of just like hearing people's point of view, people's different backgrounds. I found it so fascinating. And So I just feel like I just watched tons of stand up and sketch comedy growing up that I that's what, and then also I feel like at a young age you realize where you stand. You're like, "Oh, I don't think I'm like the pretty girl that the teachers fawn over," that you realize that you got to get your value somewhere else. And I was like, I'll try to be funny. And so I feel like I kind of already started writing jokes at a young age or trying to be funny. I'm sure it was obnoxious.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I started writing kind of jokes seriously in high school. And then I always wanted to, but I never knew how to do it. Like no one told me. And back at that time, there's no internet. I started before Y2K, right before, I think it was in 99.
Okay.
Um, and so I remember being in Austin. I was hanging out with my brother at his place, and I saw a back ad for Aspen Comedy Festival, and I was aware of that from HBO. And so it was an open call, and I was so naive about stand up that I thought, oh, you just put together 5 minutes and then you do it. And it was a cattle call. So I did it. It was with like hundreds of comics, and we each got 2 minutes. And of course, I was bad, but I wasn't the worst. But it dawned on me when I started watching everyone going up. I was like, oh, some of these people sound really polished.
Mhm.
And I realized that's because they had been working on it. And then I met a few Houston comics because I grew up in Houston, and asked them about the scene, and they told me about where they go up. And then that Monday I was going to school at the Art Institute of Houston. I found out when the first mic was. I dropped my Monday night class and I moved it, and then I started doing mics, and then that's how I started. Was in
Okay.
Houston doing Monday mics for like years.
Okay. So we're gonna get back to that. Did you say your parents are not from here? Where are your parents from?
They they're from South Africa. My mom's English, and then her family moved there for her dad got a professorship at the university in Johannesburg, and then my dad is several generations. And then yeah, they wanted to move, and so my dad had fantasies of Texas, and he got a
Okay.
job here, and so they moved here or to Texas in
Okay.
like 1979.
So describe like because I kind of see like some similarities, but not all the way. How is Houston different from New York City?
Um, God, I don't know. It's because times have changed. Like,
Mhm.
I would tell you, like, the kind of comedy that I started, or like the scene is kind of way different now, but also the same. Like, it's split politically, of course.
Yeah.
Um, where I felt like it was under a bigger umbrella when I started, and then now I feel like there's like two schools of comedy.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
that's how I feel like it's different. But I think in the Houston scene, it's kind of the same. The only difference that I would say is like once I moved to New York, I realized the work ethic was quite a bit different. Like in
mhm.
Houston, you just go up Monday night and then you would drink all week and, lightly work on your set. Where once I moved to New York, I realized, oh, you have to go up every night. And that was a game changer for me to see like what you had to put in to stand up. And I don't think I would have gotten that if I stayed in Houston.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember her name, but it was a comic from New York. It was this Hulu comedies documentary about women doing comedy. And like
Oh,
for
is it
me,
Jessica Kirstenstock?
I'm I think so. I don't think
Okay.
it's on Hulu anymore. It's been I think I watched it like a year or two ago. But it was just talking about I think it mainly stayed on women in New York because that's where they were just doing it at. But um it was talking about women in comedy. And this one comic, she was like, yeah, I have a lot of comics that come up to me every day and they ask me how do they get into it, and she says her first question she asked them is how many nights are you doing comedy, and she said if they're not doing it every night, I know they're not doing it seriously. And now I'm not from New York, so we don't have comedy every night, and you being in Houston only doing it on Monday nights, how do you gain more experience doing comedy and getting that stage time, getting those reps when you're living in a city that you don't have a mic every night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel like as time has changed, I feel like a lot of, with the internet, people have seen what you need to put in from other cities, that even in Houston, there's been a lot more independent shows that now I think there is a room that you can be at every single night. So I would personally say, if you can't get to like New York, because even in LA, when I talk to my friends that move out there, they're only going up like 3 or 4 times a month. Like it's not
Mm,
that much. It's more sparse. That I would say try to move to a city that has a bigger scene. Like there's Chicago, Austin, Houston. Um, I know there's others that have a scene that you can go up probably at least once a night. I would say
yeah.
5 times a week is enough to at least start getting good.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because what year was that? I think so I started a little bit before the pandemic, and then once things started to open up, and I had the mental capacity to go, I would go like once a week, then two, then three, and it slowly got up to six. We don't have six mics a night. I mean six mics a week here anymore. We probably will coming up here in the next couple months. So what I started to do was I started to go out of town. Like I go to Cincinnati,
Yeah.
I go to Dayton, I go to Louisville, and I make the sacrifice and I drive and go that far to get the reps in. And also, I'm at a point now where I am getting to those club open mics where they start to see, and I see it as an audition. Like they see you and they like,
Yeah.
hey, can you come to the showcase? So that's where I'm at right now. So that's what I do. I try to go out of the city to get those reps in as much as possible.
Well, you live in a state, there's a lot of cities that actually have lots of great scenes. Like, you got Cleveland, Ohio, Cincinnati, Columbus.
Yeah,
Where's Go Bananas?
it's in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you're by Louisville. So you're in an area that you can like hit a lot of places within a, hour, 2 hour drive.
yeah. Now, when you
Because
was doing my fault, go ahead.
sorry, I was, because in Houston when I started, like I was going, like there are times where I would drive to like Beaumont, Texas to do gigs to get extra
Mm,
reps, and then there were clubs outside of the city. It was a little harder for me because at the time could probably say that I was considered alternative, and those rooms were a little bit more broad, like
yeah.
the stand up wise. So I would eat it quite a bit, but I thought it's good to do those rooms.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
love I love I have a love-hate relationship with bombing because like
Yeah.
bomb
Yeah, it's
bombing,
brutal, but it's necessary.
yes, bombing keeps you humble. So like I told my counselor I was supposed to do the funny bone here and I was supposed to be on the list, but I didn't get on. Then they put me on and it was like, all right, the show's going too late, so we gotta take you off. I was like, cool. So then I went the next night to Cincinnati and I did the funny bone there. And then I had a show like the following week on a Thursday. And I did good at the Funny Bone on Cincinnati. So it was like, hey, we want to book you for a showcase. I was like, bet. And then I did basically like the same routine, but just a few more minutes at the show the next week, and I bombed. And she was like, oh, it keeps you humble. I was like, yeah, it totally keeps you humble for sure. And I think my problem is knowing what jokes go with the audience. I don't think I'm comfortable yet or confident yet to be like, this jokes work for everybody. So
Yeah.
when you go on stage, should you just do you say how you feel, or do you have different jokes for different audiences?
Well, that one's hard still. Cause sometimes I'm like, I have the mindset of like, you're here to pay to do a job. It depends what the gig is, but I actually feel like you should stay true to yourself to a bit and find your audience. Because the times that I've bombed that I actually feel the worst is when I felt like I went against character
Mm,
and it feels dirty. I mean, so I don't like that. But I also am not like, I'm not one of those people that's like, if you're going into a predominantly conservative town to like, or area, and then you're just doing all pro abortion bits where you're like, I don't know what you're here to gain. And now you're just actually like being antagonistic. But I'm sure there's comments that would, are comics that would disagree with me, and that's fine. But for me personally, it's like I just rather preach to the choir.
Yeah. I know, I
So
understand.
I will curb a few jokes if I know that an audience is predominantly one side than the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your comedic character, have you feel like you found that character yet? And what is that character?
I think I have. Like, I feel pretty comfortable on stage. Who I am, but like, yeah, there are times where you're like, oh yeah, I think I got it. And still to this day, you're like, nope. Wow, it's like going on a bad date where you're like, we just did not mesh. They did not like me and I did not like them. Or like
Yeah.
sometimes like crowds rather prefer you going in and doing crowd work.
Hmm.
Like I'll be doing like a material and then you're just like I might try it and true and you're like, okay, there's just not a connection here. So then you go in and do crowd work and then you get them and then you're like, let me go back to my material again. And then they're not into it and you're like, okay, you just want a party starter and I'm not a
Yeah.
party starter.
That's what I do. Like, I'll be like, all right, cool. Y'all not, and then I'll just start doing crowd work. And then let's say I make a random joke like off the dome about like toes or something. And then they'll start laughing. And I'll be like, okay, y'all like toe jokes. So we just gonna stick with toes today. And I'll just try to ride toes out as much
Yeah.
as I can. But like I do crowd work too, but like I haven't got comfortable enough. And I think it's because I'm just now starting to get on those comedy club stages to where like if I'm in a comedy club where I can do crowd work, usually I only do it like at bar shows or something like that. But like at an actual club, I haven't been confident enough yet. I usually just stick to the script. So for people who like try to like stick to the script for everything, what's like your advice for them to come off the script? Because sometimes that's where the funny is at.
Yeah, and I do feel like you should, as a performer, have the ability to bend with the situation. Like, I don't think it pays to be rigid. I think you should get used to, I think it's fun, like, to have a loose set. You need to have a connection with people. And so if you're just up there memorizing lines, some audiences are just not into that and they'll see it. And you got to figure out a way to like make your material connect. Like try you got to do crowd work.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like it. It's not my I don't like talking to people cuz sometimes you get someone that's out. Like I'll give you an example. This happened at Go Bananas in Cincinnati. I was a Sunday night and I generally like Sunday shows because it's looser, it's less audience members. I can tend to work on more newer material. And so I kind of have a more fun time doing it. But this time around, it was like 10 people showed up, which is fine. And there was a woman, a couple in the front, and they seemed a little drunk. She was like, a lot of times being into it, like, yes, making those audible noises. And you're like, it's a little annoying, but you're like, she's there. And then sometimes I would do a joke and she would recoil in sadness and like make noises. And it was awkward and weird. So I was like, okay, maybe I should just like do some crowd work. And started getting into it. And then she just dropped a horrific bomb in the show saying her son just killed himself or died 2 or 3 days ago or something. And it was such a bomb and trauma dumping that I was like, and it was so depressing that I was like, I don't know if I ever want to do crowd work ever again because of that. I was actually like livid with her. I know that I had to show empathy, but I was like, how completely inappropriate was that? I had to tell her, I was like, I don't think you should be here because I had to rearrange my set everywhere because, and sometimes you joke about dark stuff. And she just showed up not knowing who the headliner was. And I'm not like, I don't think I'm completely vulgar or super dark, but yeah, there are times where I'm like, oh, can't do that. That has death in it. That tag has like this suicide punchline. And so you're just rearranging your whole set. So it was just like, that was horrific. That's why I don't really like crowd work, is
Yeah,
because somebody can derail a show like that. And you
yeah,
have to treat it. I had to be kind to her.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cincinnati's a little different. Go Bananas. I love Go Bananas. It's very friendly to the local artists, and
Yes.
I love it so much. I love, to be honest, I am finding more joy in doing, I mean, I'll do it anywhere, comedy anywhere, but I'm finding more joy doing a set at a independent club as opposed to one of these bigger clubs. I have no idea why, but it's just, I don't know, I just like it more. I don't really know why. I really don't know why.
I'm the same way. I think a lot of it has to do with like, it's all like a mindset. I just feel like no one's paying attention to me. And then I feel like I'm not being micromanaged, that I can actually be who
Mm,
I am. Not that I'm like out of control when I get on stage, but like, I don't know. There's nothing that makes me feel less funny than having somebody make me feel like I have to be funny.
right, right, right. Um,
Yeah. So
so let's talk.
yeah.
Go ahead, my fault.
I was just sorry. Like, I try to get into the mindset of not that art of not giving a fuck
Yeah, yeah,
with being
yeah,
respectful at the same time.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
balance.
yeah, yeah. Now, one thing you said earlier, you said those Monday nights in Houston that you kept going up, and that was like the only mic that you were hitting. I'm pretty sure early on, there were some sets that went bad. How did you find the any for any comedian that's listening right now? How did you find the confidence to keep going and during those early years to keep going back?
I think you're just a level of psychoticness, or that you're like, cuz you're like, I know I can write a joke and I can hit. And so you get enough good sets that keep you in, but man, there are people that just bomb and bomb. They're like the misfits of comedy, and they keep doing it and they become their own novelty act in a way.
Yeah.
Like every scene has it where you're like, "Oh, this guy." All the comics come from the back to watch this guy famously bomb. Um so it is like kind of interesting, but I like, there was a club in New York that I would do. It was called LOL, and it was like such a, it's shit club. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care about burning that bridge, but in a weird way, it made me better, because you start realizing when you get to do so many crappy sets like that, that it's not personal.
Mm,
Just because these people don't like your stand up does not mean that you're not funny, or it has anything to do with you. So that it kind of made me relax a lot more on stage. That's why I say it is important to bomb. Like, you have to learn to bomb with grace. And I feel like that's what makes you a better comic.
no, I'm glad you said that because there, here in Columbus, there are. I didn't really understand it at first, and I don't think they do either because they don't do it. But there were a lot of comics who were talking about open micers. We haven't reached that pinnacle yet where we are regulars at a club. The funny bone here, we don't even have regulars. Like they just pick people to host or whatever.
Yeah.
So they were like making fun of open micers and stuff, and then they don't really come to open mics because they don't get that validation that they want on stage. They don't hear the last stuff like that, so they don't like to come out. But I like going to those open mics in those tough rooms. For one, that's just where I'm at right now in my career, and then two, I like it because I'm like, as you get years in the game, you got to know how to work different audiences. Like some audiences ain't gonna be open right away, so you gotta work that muscle to get them open and open them up and hear what you got to say. So how did you go from doing just strictly open mics early on, and then now you're getting book shows, and now are you a regular at the New York Comedy Club?
Yeah. I feel
Okay.
like I am. Yeah. I feel
Okay.
comfortable to say that. I like in Houston, the scene that I was at, the Laugh Stop, that was the club at the time. They would always have like monthly showcase shows. At the time, it was like the all female comic one, and then the all male one, and it was called Brassy Broads, and then the male one's called Black and Blue. And that, so there was kind of like a hierarchy. So you knew, like, once you started, you're like, my goal is to get on one of those shows to do like 5 to 7 minutes. So if you start like doing the mics and showing that you're good and that you're working on stuff and that you can make people laugh, you will get booked there. Then was like from there to learn how to MC. and then from there to like feature. But now I think things are so different.
Mm.
I think so many people skip all those steps and they have their own fan base with the internet. So like I don't give advice anymore like that. Because there's times I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And then I go look at their Instagram and they've got like 1 million followers. And you're like, what am I doing? like, you have your own path. Like
Yeah,
it just depends what you want to do. Where like for me, like I want a good set. Like I want to become a good comic. And you can do it through the internet route, but some people never have to like grind their teeth. But there are some that manage to push through that get to headline automatically and pull out 45 minutes. Their first year might not be that great, but nobody cares. And
yeah,
then they get better. You just have to put in the work and you have to like make an effort. And I've seen the people that get propelled fast, and if they don't do that, they usually kind of fall to the wayside or whatever that saying is. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Another question I want to ask now: why do you feel like it's important to go up several times a week? Now you said 5 to get good. Why do you feel like you need to go up several times a week to get good?
Well, you have your initial joke that you try out. It might be just a thought that you have. I tend to write on stage. So I'll have
Mhm.
an initial thought that I have written down as a tweet, but when you start going up, you're having fun. If the audience is having fun with you, you tend to be a lot more playful and you're going to draw out more tags on your bit because you're just like addicted to getting more laughs. So I just feel like that's how you write a lot more
Yeah.
too. You're going to get your bits are going to get longer. Like I always write a lot more when I get to do the road and I get to do 25 to 45 minutes because you're forced to fit that time slot.
Okay. So when you do that on the road, those longer sets, how do you structure your set? Like, are you doing for short jokes that work at first, then some that are you still working on, then newer ones at the end? Like, how are you setting this up?
Yeah, I do start off strong. I have my tried and true in the front. I always say jokes that like let the audience trust you a little bit more of like who you are as a person. Like you don't have to
Mhm.
be like, I know what I look like those jokes.
Yeah,
But it's in that same vein, I have to say. Like, I think that's great. But again, like when I sometimes it's hard to give advice. You're like, I just think it's anyone's game these days. Like, do what feels true to you. And
yeah,
I generally start off cleaner and then I go, my dirtier stuff is at the end because then they're on the journey or they trust you as an audience that you're not going
okay.
to start making them like bad stuff. You can do your racier things at the
Yeah,
end. Or your darker material because they like you. So I don't know, it's still always, sometimes I'm always like, I don't understand how I come up with this, but it ends up that's the other thing. You naturally get your lineup as you do it because
yeah,
it comes to you. Your jokes come to you how it feels natural in the order. Because I've
yeah,
done it where like especially on the longer sets, my memory, you have it written down this way and then you forget a joke, but then you realize it actually, and then you're like, oh shit, I forgot that joke.
yeah,
But then you're like, oh, I can do that then. And then it feels like it fits better at that moment. So it
yeah,
kind of all falls in place. That's why I always say you got to put in reps to
yeah,
get that comfortable with memorization and then the flow of your set. And I feel like, yeah, you get a flow. I always say it's like catching a wave.
yeah, yeah. Trial and
Yeah.
error, trial and error. Now, one thing you did do, and I did watch a little bit of it, is your special here. No, my fault. That's the wrong one. Forgive me. Your special here on YouTube. How did you know it was time? How did you come up with the name? And also, who like directed this? Because that B-roll at the beginning was amazing. Like that was top notch. Like that, yeah, I love
Oh,
that.
wow. Well, I'm flattered because I feel like I didn't put that much thought into it because I'll tell you, and this will be interesting for anybody that wants to shoot a special for you. YouTube. I so the how it came about is 800-pound gorilla asked me to do an album. That's how it came about.
Okay.
And so it forced me. I was like, I think you should always say yes when something like that happens.
Mm.
But I'll go back. I think most people, you got, even in the beginning, you should work on, once you get your good 45 to an hour, put it down. It's a piece of art. And you're always, and that's, you are like an artist in a way. And I know it sounds pretentious, but like start working on pieces of art, like your projects.
Mhm.
It'll make you a better artist. And I regret that I didn't do it sooner, because I found the process to be quite enjoyable. So I got asked, it gave me a few months to put together a set. I knew that I'd been doing it for a long time, that I knew that I knew I could do that time slot. I didn't get to, I'm not like a headliner on the road because I have no fan base. So it's hard for me to do long sets. So at the time there was a place called Creek in the Cave. Now it's moved to Austin, and she let me at 6:00 every night, and I was doing it to 2 people, but I didn't care. I worked out my set, and that helped with the memorization and putting it together. And then throughout town, you get 15 minutes throughout the city. So for months on end, I would do my first 15, and then the second 15, and then the third 15, and I would try to put that together. And I was doing that for weeks leading up. And then I finally had the memorization down, and all my order made sense to me. So I taped it as an album, and then with 800, they offered somebody to come shoot it. So it's just one camera. It was 4K. And then a year later, because we went into lockdown, I wanted to build up my YouTube channel, and I went to go look at that footage, and I was like, it's not bad. And I want to build up so I can start monetizing. So I just had a friend who edits for a living, and I told him to cut it up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Holbert, and he cut it up. He's another comic. And then I liked it, and I slapped it up, and I was actually quite surprised for a YouTube and a small subscribership that I had, it pushed me to monetize, and it did exactly what I wanted to do. And I knew it was going to not have the numbers that some of my peers had that had more of a polished thing, but it shed some light on me.
Yeah.
That like, you don't need to be that precious about your specials.
Yeah.
If I could do it again, like I would definitely do a 2-camera shoot, but I would kind of do it the same way and then edit. And I don't think it needs to be as expensive. I don't think specials need to have crane shots or like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes they get so artistic on Netflix that you're like, this is silly. And then you watch like, one of my favorite specials, I forgot which one. I think it's Richard Pryor. It's near Compton. He's in a theater. He starts the set and people still haven't sat down yet. He just starts. He's even commenting of like people taking a while to get to their seats. And I like the way that looks. I like kind of those old specials. I think things got too stylized that I think for the consumer of comedy, they just want to watch good material. Mm-hmm. And that one camera is all that you need. And so, you can go 2 cameras to make it look a little bit better, but I don't think you need to spend thousands of dollars on specials anymore.
What was like the marketing for that? Because you said you weren't monetizing yet on YouTube, and this, got you to that level. So what type of marketing did you do to help get you there?
So you just reach out to your friends, being like, do any and all podcasts. And most of them are most of friends, even the ones in like high places, were really nice and shared stuff. Like a lot of the bigger comics were really nice about that. I got to do their podcasts, and then you just put up clips, and I think those help. Do reels, and then and also leading up to it, or I would just try to do a lot of sketches, like anything to get more people to watch my YouTube channel, because you put your end cards at the end of your videos and it links to other videos. And then try to get really good about your search engine optimization. Get yourself aligned on Google, YouTube. Like find out the other comics that you're probably similar with, that if people like that, they'll find you. So in my search, my keywords, I try to use other comics names that fit the same genre that I am.
Okay. Okay. That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah, get really good. Just find out about Google Analytics and
Okay. Okay.
hashtags. I mean, it sounds so cheesy and dirty, but like if you look at your analytics, like people do go find you from hashtags.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How all right, so we're gonna pivot here a little bit. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of comedy?
Wow, that's like hard. I don't know. Like, I go through phases. It's kind of like how you are with music sometimes, where you're like, God, I'm really into this comic. Like during COVID, I got really into Rory Scovel stuff because I was watching a lot of comics, social media, and seeing like the kind of clips. And I really enjoyed like what he was doing visually. And then I just like his style, and I just think he's like an overall fun comic
Mm-hmm.
to watch. It's weird. Like some comics are really great watching online, but then some are like better live. And I think he's kind of in that realm of both. So I'll put Rory Scovel up there right now. Of course, like my Rushmore changes.
Right.
I like Roy Wood Jr.
Okay.
And I'm always like, I think he would disagree, but like, there's all these comics like the comics like Chappelle and Patrice O'Neill get like a lot of love, but I'm just kind of like, I feel like he's up there.
Yeah.
I think he's just like a really talented comic, and feel like he should be on a Rushmore
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
Burrs and stuff like that. I just think I like what he has to say. I'll do Bill Burr. I'll do my husband.
You better do your husband. You better put him on there.
Who else? Let me see who. Oh, I really think Beth Stelling is amazing. I think she's great. Yamanika is really fun to watch live.
Yeah.
I think she's an amazing comic. I don't really see. I think she puts up clips. I don't see. I think because she does more other stuff like
Okay.
POV stuff. But like when you watch her at the Cellar, it's just like dynamic and really joyful.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I want to touch back real quick. What you said you like doing Sunday shows. Sometimes I see comics do shows Thursday through Saturday, and then I see them do shows like just Friday, Saturday, or they'll do Friday through Sunday. So what is like the difference? Because sometimes when I hear podcasts, I hear comedians speaking, they be like, "Oh, the Thursday crowd was trash. The Friday crowd, they was tired, blah blah blah." So what's like a good somebody that's probably about to start booking gigs and everything? Like, what's your preference for like the days that you want to do your stand up on the weekend, and why?
Okay. Well, I feel like I might be different to most comics, or I don't know. We'll see. I prefer doing stand up Monday to Thursday. No, Sunday through Thursday. I don't like Friday, Saturday crowds because those are usually people that are like, let's go to the club. Like, I don't understand these people that show up to comedy clubs not knowing who the headliner is. Like, that's absolutely psychotic to me.
Yeah.
Like, things are so divisive these days to show up and not know. And a lot of humor is like political or like social commentary. Like, it's insane to me that you just show up and then you're livid or upset that the comic did certain material that you're offended by. But like, I think that's your fault.
Yeah.
Everybody has a YouTube clip. Go check it out. Or that gets frustrating. So I tend to find like Friday, Saturday shows are amateur hour. It's just dum-dums. Or they're drunk. They've been day drinking, or they're there. They think they're like the show. You get more hecklers those days. It's just work. And that's across the board, no matter what city you're in. Like, yeah, a lot of the times, majority, it is fun. But like the times that I've had the worst times, it's generally the Friday, Saturday shows. And I've seen the most back in the day. That's when I would see the most fights happen. Was from, because it's just like drunk people. But then the Sunday through Thursday people generally tend to be more comedy fans. I think they also know that comics work out their newer stuff during those time periods. So for me, like whenever back in the day when Louis would come through Houston, he would occasionally do the mics, and that was always the more enjoyable. Like I like watching the process. So I
Okay.
like watching the beginning of a joke and see like how it ends up in their special. Like that to me is enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I think like comedy fans really come out on the Sunday through Thursday, and those are the crowds that I like performing for.
Okay. So now one thing is leading me to my next question. I like no matter what show, open mic or a real show, I will post a joke right away, and I don't mind people seeing it in its rough draft because by the time you come see me, it's not going to be the same line for line. So how, with that being said, how did you build your brand? Because your IG is so polished, everything is like so correct. How did you build that brand? What was like that process for you?
I don't know. I guess like after, especially with IG, it was like I don't know what we're doing. Like 10 years ago, you're like, I just put up this photo of whatever, and then I think it's like when Sam Morrill, I think, kind of changed it a bit. He was taking the clips that didn't make it on to the week at the Cellar on Comedy Central, and he was clipping them and and then reels just happened. You started to see him blow up, and that is when like I think comics were like, oh, fuck the inspirational photos, or like it's game time. Like this is a business now, and then you're getting paid for reels. Like it definitely, I felt like that's where comics started getting, more conscious about like what they're putting up. And so COVID also played a huge part too. Is like, okay, I wasn't able to do stand up. You're like, it taught me that if you just deliver a joke from your couch or an idea that you have, it's a really great starting point for a bit for stage.
Hmm.
So I just do that. I send that up, and then also like to make sketch. I really enjoy video, and I like video editing myself, the art form of it. So I was starting to make like little shorts that I wanted to do, and that was a conscious decision to get more people to come to my YouTube channel. So I did
Yeah.
that.
You're different, man. You said that you find editing as an art form. I agree with you, but I do not. I hate editing, man. Even before I started doing comedy, I used to be a news reporter, and you had to edit your own stuff. I freaking hate it.
It's brutal. I have this joke right now of like, you watch so much video of yourself that you're like, now I want to leave hateful comments on my YouTube videos. Like, you just hate yourself so much. But I like editing. I'll do other people's stuff, and then I like editing my shorts, like I call them short films, but they're really just like sketches. Um, I like the process. Like you start with, it's like a slab of film,
Yeah.
and you start shaving, and you have no idea what you want to do. And then it's like you have to walk away from it. I'm a big fan of that, whatever it's called, the Pomodoro effect, where you work 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, where you take a break.
Mm,
Um, and that helps with like focus. And then you slowly like, I don't have deadlines, so I can take as long as I want, but
yeah.
I do want my things out. Like I live for the dopamine rush of getting external likes. Like I need that validation, so I need it out. So I like the art form. You just start shaving and you play with your J cuts, and I like choosing the music, and then I'm like, oh, then you watch something, you're like, I kind of want to do this scene for my sketch, and
Yeah.
I like what that person's doing, and it's so many choices. Like I just, my favorite part is just like coming up with the soundtrack.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Sarah, as we start to wrap this plane up here, anybody that is watching this, what words of encouragement or words of motivation do you have for any young comics that are, watching this right now?
I don't know. I would say that like I don't think you need to like focus on being funny on stage. Like when you first start, like just focus on being like comfortable and just speaking your thoughts in your mind. Like I just think like sharing any weird idea that you have or weird thought, like just put it up because that's generally where I start from writing is like, because that is what's going to set you apart and that will be funny. Like it might not feel like set up punchline, but it is funny, like because it's different. And then you'll find out other people have had those relatable thoughts. Like, so I just say, like, kind of just, I think it's more interesting to hear someone talk about their day than when they're trying to be funny. And that will just be what the humor is anyway. And that's how you'll find your point of view. So that's, and just like keep your head down and work and don't listen to anybody. Like, because it doesn't matter. Like, you just do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, tell people why they should listen to Comedians in Bed.
Oh, well, it's fun, and I think you'll get a lot of insight to stand up, and I think it's fun to listen to all kinds of comics creative process. I mean, that's my favorite thing, and everybody's different to the way that they create material, and so I think you'll get lots of different insight that way.
Sarah, where can people reach you at, man?
You can, like, I give my phone number out. You can call me at any time of the day. It's just that I'm my handle on the bottom of the screen. That's what I'm at all social media platforms except YouTube, which is my handle is at Sarah T Comedy. Or if you just type in Sarah Tollemache, follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel because that's where I think the future is of stand up, and it's also the present.
Yeah.
They're only giving Netflix specials to like the top 1% and barely that. So get your subscribership up.
Yeah. And on OnlyFans too. But if you
I need to start doing that too.
That's where the real money's at.
Yeah. Stop fingering yourself on camera immediately. Let's be real.
Hey, if you want to watch next week's episode, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at TYE Comedy. If you want to hear the audio version, you can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We had the wonderful, the beautiful Sarah Tollemache on here with us today. We appreciate her so much. Be sure to give her a follow on everything social. We'll see you guys next week.